I retired at 62 and moved by myself to the mountain house my wife and I had built 30 years earlier. No traffic, no loud streets, only wind moving through the pine trees and the kind of silence that never asks anything from you. For a while, it felt like enough. Then my son called. "Dad," Ethan said, his voice casual, like he was asking for some small favor. "Lena's parents need a place for a few months. They're going to stay with you." I didn't answer immediately, not because I was confused, but because I understood perfectly. "Ethan," I finally said, "that's not your decision." There was a pause, then his tone changed. "If you don't like it," he said flatly, "you can go back to the city." I slowly looked around the house. My house. Built with overtime hours, years of savings, and a woman who believed peace was something people had to earn. "I'll think about it," I replied. But I had already made my choice. I didn't argue. I didn't fight with him. I didn't remind him whose name was on the property papers or who had paid for every piece of wood and every stone in that house. I simply packed a small bag, left the keys where he would find them, and drove down the mountain without telling him my reason. 3 days later, his in-laws arrived, unlocked the front door, and walked inside like the place already belonged to them. Within 10 minutes, they realized something was very wrong. My name is Victor Hale. I'm 62 years old, and I've learned that people rarely value what you freely hand them. They value what you protect. After my wife Eleanor died 8 years ago, that mountain house became the final place in the world that still felt honest. We built it ourselves. Weekends, freezing winters, little arguments about window designs and wood colors that now feel like memories carved deep into the walls. Every room carried something of her. Ethan used to understand that. Before marriage. Before Lena. Before the slow change where my son stopped talking to me like I was his father and started treating me like I was some kind of backup plan. It didn't happen overnight. At first, it was little things. Asking me to co-sign a loan temporarily. Borrowing money that somehow was never mentioned again. Then came decisions made without me, followed later by explanations instead of actual conversations. Lena's parents moving in was simply the last step. Not because they truly needed help, but because they expected access. The moment Ethan said, "They're moving in," I understood he wasn't asking me. He was informing me. And the second he told me to go back to the city if I didn't like it, I realized something else. This wasn't about family anymore. It was about control. So I didn't stay and argue. I didn't stay and defend something that should have been obvious from the beginning. I left. But before I did, I changed the one thing in that house nobody else knew about. Because peace doesn't come from silence alone. It comes from preparation. The mountain house had always looked simple on the outside. Stone walls, wooden beams, large windows facing endless trees. But what people never saw was the system underneath it all. I had installed it myself years earlier after Eleanor once said, "Never depend completely on other people for your safety." The system wasn't fancy by modern standards, but it worked perfectly. Independent power controls, internal security locks, access overrides, and one main rule. The house only answered to the owner. Me. 3 days after I left, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello?" "Victor," Ethan said immediately, already annoyed. "What did you do?" I leaned back in the small rental apartment I had taken in the city. Calm. Quiet. "I left," I answered. "No," he snapped. "The house. Nothing is working. The heating system is locked. The garage door won't open. Upstairs doors won't unlock properly." I stayed silent. In the background, I can hear voices. Lena. Her mother. Confused. Irritated. Then another voice, her father. "Ask him about the power." Ethan returned, more frustrated now. "The backup generator isn't even turning on. What is this?" I waited a second before speaking. "It's a private security system," I said. "Installed years ago." "Well, fix it," he said immediately. Not please, not why. Just fix it. That was the exact moment I knew I had made the correct decision. Because even then, standing inside my home, he still believed the house belonged to him. Fix it, Ethan repeated, harsher this time. Like I was some repairman he could order around instead of the man who had built every inch of the place. I let the silence sit there long enough for him to hear himself clearly. No, I finally said. That one word landed harder than anything else I could have told him. What do you mean, no? He shot back. They just arrived. You can't leave them there like this. I closed my eyes for a moment and pictured the house again. The cold stone floors. The giant windows facing the valley. The kitchen Eleanor had carefully designed down to the smallest cabinet handle. They shouldn't be there, I answered quietly. Then Lena's voice cut through the background, sharp with annoyance. This is ridiculous. Tell him to stop acting dramatic and turn everything back on. There it was. No respect, no understanding, only expectation. Ethan came back, his voice lower now, trying harder to control himself. Dad, this isn't funny. It's not supposed to be, I replied. Another long silence followed. Then he tried a different approach. They're my family. I almost laughed at that. And I'm not? I asked calmly. That one hit him. I could hear it in the way he didn't answer immediately. In the sudden quiet behind him. Even Lena stopped talking for a second. Finally, Ethan spoke again. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, I answered softly. Then I told him the part he never considered. The house was never yours to offer. Silence. Real silence this time. Not anger, not irritation, shock. You told them they could stay there, I continued. Without asking me. Without even pretending to respect the fact that it's my home. They just needed somewhere temporary, he muttered weakly. No, I corrected him. You needed to prove you had authority over something that was never yours. I heard Lena whispering in the background again, but this time her voice sounded less confident. Ethan exhaled hard into the phone. So what now? He asked. Now? I said. Now they leave. You're serious? Completely. They already moved their things in. That sounds like a problem you should have thought about before making promises. His frustration exploded again. You're being selfish. I actually smiled at that. Selfish. Funny word. I spent most of my life working overtime shifts to provide for my family. I missed birthdays, weekends, holidays. I carried responsibilities without complaining because that's what fathers do. Eleanor and I sacrificed for years to build that house together. And somehow protecting the last thing we built together made me selfish. You know what selfish is? I asked quietly. Volunteering someone else's home because it saves you from saying no. He didn't answer. So I continued. You didn't ask me because you already assumed I'd accept it. That's the part that matters. That's not fair, Ethan muttered. No, I replied. What's unfair is treating your father like a backup account you can withdraw from whenever life becomes uncomfortable. In the background, Lena suddenly grabbed the phone. Victor, this is honestly unbelievable, she said coldly. My parents are standing here in a freezing house because of your pride. My pride? I repeated calmly. Yes. You're punishing people who did nothing wrong. No, I said. I'm correcting people who crossed a line. You could at least act mature about this. I almost laughed again. Mature. Interesting choice of words from someone who walked into another person's house without permission. You know what maturity is, Lena? I asked. Understanding that kindness is not ownership. She went quiet for half a second. Then came the sharper tone. Ethan was only trying to help family. And in the process, I answered, he forgot how to treat his own father. I could hear movement, muffled arguing between them. Then Ethan took the phone back. Dad, he said more quietly now, exhausted. Can we just figure this out? We already did. What's that supposed to mean? It means they leave the house. And if we don't? I leaned back in my chair and looked out the apartment window at the city lights. Then nothing changes, I said calmly. The systems stay locked. The utilities stay restricted. And eventually, you'll understand something very important. What? You cannot take ownership of something simply because someone was kind enough to let you near it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then finally, in a voice smaller than before, Ethan asked, "Why are you doing this?" That question stayed with me for several seconds, because the truth was simple. I wasn't doing this to hurt him. I was doing it because somewhere along the way, my son had mistaken patience for weakness, and if I allowed this moment to pass, he would spend the rest of his life believing respect was optional when it came to me. So I answered honestly. "Because your mother and I built that house together," I said quietly. "And I will not let the last piece of her become a place where I'm treated like I no longer matter. You told me to leave my own house." Now he finally understood it wasn't the system, not the locks, not even the security. It was the mistake. Because some lines don't set off alarms when you cross them, they create consequences. And he had just crossed one of them. "What do you want?" Ethan asked. His tone had changed now. Less demanding, more careful. That small change told me everything I needed to know. I stood beside the window in my rental apartment, staring out at a city that once felt noisy, but now only felt far away in a different kind of way. "I want nothing," I said. That confused him. "You locked down the house, and you want nothing," he replied. "I didn't lock it down," I answered calmly. "I restricted it. There's a difference." In the background, I could hear Lena arguing with her mother. Cabinets opening, doors being pulled and tested, frustration building layer after layer. Funny how people only notice systems when those systems stop working. "Dad," Ethan said, his voice getting tighter, "they can't stay like this." I let the silence sit there for a moment. Not to hurt him, but to make the point clear. "You moved them in without asking me," I said. "You told me to leave if I didn't like it. So I left." "That's not the same thing," he snapped back quickly. "It is," I replied. "You just never imagined it would cost you anything." Silence. Then softer this time. "So what? They just suffer?" There it was again. The belief that consequences only matter once they start affecting him personally. "No," I said calmly. "They leave." Another pause. Then Lena's voice came through again, louder this time. "This is ridiculous. Tell him we're not leaving anywhere." I heard it. So did Ethan. And for the first time, he didn't repeat her words back to me. Because somewhere between having control and facing consequences, reality had finally started settling in. They lasted 2 nights. That was all it took. The first night they tried managing it. Extra blankets, old space heaters they found in the garage, doors left open, hoping the little heat still left in the house would spread from room to room. The second night, reality arrived. Mountain cold doesn't negotiate. By the morning of the third day, Ethan called again. Not angry this time, just exhausted. "Dad," he said quietly, "they're leaving." I didn't answer right away because, honestly, this wasn't the important part. "Good," I finally replied. A long silence followed. Then, more quietly, "Lena's upset." I almost smiled. "That's not exactly new," I answered. He let out a slow breath like he wanted to argue, but didn't have the energy anymore. "They said you planned this," he added. "I did," I said. No excuses, no softening the truth, just honesty. Another silence. Then carefully, almost nervously, "So, when can I come back?" Not we, not they, just him. I noticed that immediately. "You don't come back," I said. That one hit him hard. "Dad." "What?" he whispered. "You told me to leave my own house," I reminded him calmly. "You made a decision without me. Now I'm making one without you." Behind him, I heard a car door slam shut. Voices fading. Tires moving over gravel. They were leaving. But this wasn't really about the house anymore. Losing access to a home is one thing. Losing your place in someone's life is something completely different. Ethan didn't call for 3 days. No messages, no texts, nothing. That silence told me more than words ever could, because for the first time in his life, he was sitting alone with consequences, and nobody was stepping in to protect him from them. On the 4th day, my phone rang again. I looked at the screen for a moment before answering. "Dad?" He started talking, then stopped. No confidence, no attitude, only hesitation. That was new. "I shouldn't have said that," he finally admitted. "About you leaving." I let him continue. I didn't interrupt him. I didn't help him either, because apologies only matter when someone carries them all the way through. "I thought," he continued, struggling now, "I thought it wasn't a big deal. I thought you'd just adjust." Adjust. That word carried years behind it. Every quiet compromise, every small sacrifice, every moment where I stepped backward so he could move forward. "I know," I said softly, "and I truly meant it. That was the problem. You got too used to it." Another long silence. "I didn't think you'd actually leave," he admitted quietly. And there it was. Expectation, not respect. I stepped away from the window and sat down slowly. "Ethan," I said, calm but firm, "you didn't lose the house." Pause, then confusion. Then what did I lose? I let that question sit between us for a moment, because this was the part that mattered most. "You lost access," I said. "Not only to the house, to me." And for the first time since all of this began, he truly understood what that meant. A week later, I drove back up the mountain by myself. The road hadn't changed. Same turns, same trees, same silence that once felt peaceful and now felt earned. When I reached the house, I didn't go inside immediately. I stood there for a while just looking at it. Nothing damaged, nothing destroyed, just empty. Exactly the way it was supposed to be. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The system recognized me instantly. "Welcome home." Lights adjusted softly around the house. The quiet place settled again, like it had simply been waiting for me to return. I walked slowly through every room. The kitchen, the living room, the hallway Eleanor used to decorate for every season like it was the most important thing in the world. Then I stopped. There on the table was a note. Ethan's handwriting. I picked it up carefully. "I didn't understand. I thought you would always stay. I was wrong. I'm sorry." No excuses. No blaming anyone else. No arguments. Just the truth. I read it once more, then folded it carefully and placed it back on the table. Because forgiveness isn't something you force. It's something that grows slowly. Or sometimes, it doesn't grow at all. I stepped outside onto the porch as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. Cold air, quiet sky, real peace. Not the kind you inherit, the kind you protect. Some people believe family means permanent access. It doesn't. Family means respect. And once respect disappears, everything connected to it slowly disappears too. The hardest lesson for Ethan was never about the house. It was about understanding that love without respect eventually turns into entitlement. And entitlement has a way of destroying the very things people assume will always remain there waiting for them. For years, I had mistaken silence for patience. I thought avoiding conflict kept families together. I thought giving in was the same thing as keeping peace. But peace built on disrespect isn't peace at all. It's surrender. And children notice that. Not immediately, but over time. They begin believing your sacrifices cost nothing. Your patience becomes expected. Your kindness becomes normal. Your boundaries disappear little by little until one day they stop seeing you as a person completely. You become a convenience, a safety net, a permanent solution to temporary problems. That was the real mistake I made with Ethan, not loving him too much, not helping too often, but teaching him without words that I would always move aside, always adjust, always stay. Until one day I didn't. The strange thing about consequences is that they feel cruel only to the people who never expected them. Everyone else simply calls it accountability. I wasn't trying to destroy my son's life. I was protecting my own. There's a difference people rarely understand until they're forced to. That mountain house was never really about luxury or comfort. It was about peace, years of work, years of sacrifice, years of building something quiet after a lifetime of noise. And I realized something standing there on that porch. If you allow people to disrespect your peace, eventually you won't recognize your own life anymore. The wind moved softly through the trees as the last light faded behind the mountains. The house stood quiet behind me, steady and calm again. For the first time in a long while, so did I.